Hi Simple Suppers families, my name is Leah. I'm from Ohio State with the Simple Suppers program, and today we're going to be making our very veggie turkey chili. It's going to go with zucchini on the side and a banana pudding parfait for dessert. So let's get started. First, I'm going to gather all of my ingredients for making this meal. So I'll kind of walk through what I have out here in front of me. So first, for the turkey chili, I have some seasonings here: salt, pepper, garlic powder, and chili powder. I also have ground turkey, although if you prefer you could use a different type of ground meat. I also have canned tomatoes and also crushed tomatoes. I also have carrots that I'm going to dice up. You can also throw in some other veggies, fresh veggies if you like, things like bell peppers. And then I also have a can of green beans here, which is no salt added. And then for toppings, I still have those in the fridge, but we do have some low-fat cheddar cheese, shredded cheddar cheese, and then also some low-fat sour cream that you can put on the top as a garnish. And then moving on to zucchini, which is going to be on the side. I do have my zucchini here and my Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to use some of my seasonings for that as well. We're going to put that in a saute pan and make that on the side. And then finally, we have our things for our banana pudding parfait. So we have no sugar added vanilla pudding. I also have some honey graham crackers here, as well as a fresh banana and some milk that I'm going to use to make the pudding. All right, so now that I have all of my ingredients here ready, let's get started. All right. So the great thing about this dish is that there's not a whole lot of prep you have to do. A lot of things you can get in cans, and it's basically just dump it in the pot and you simmer it all together and there's your soup. So before I start though, I am going to prep a couple of things that I'll need to add. So specifically, I'm going to dice my carrots. And if you have any other fresh veggies, you could dice that up here too. I also have a half of a yellow onion that I'm going to put in as well. I'm going to go ahead and just peel the skin off of this onion. And make sure too to wash all of your produce before you chop it up. So as I prep here, I'm going to go ahead and just toss all of my ingredients directly into my stock pot. This is a crock pot recipe, but if you don't have a crock pot, or if you just would prefer to do it on the stove, you can always use just a nice deep stock pot. You can toss all of your ingredients in there. I would recommend that you get it up to a boil at first, and then go ahead and let it simmer then for a few hours, or until everything is nice and soft. Alright, so I've got my carrots and my onions in there ready to go. And then I also have, whole canned tomatoes here, and I do want those to be chopped up. You could also purchase diced tomatoes in a can. Try and look for no salt added varieties of canned goods. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these out and chop them up a little bit smaller so that we don't have big giant pieces of tomato in our soup. And I am going to use the juices from the canned tomatoes as part of the liquid in the soup, so I'm going to go ahead and pour this in here. And then I also had a little bit of extra from a different recipe. These are just crushed tomatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and add these in here as well. All right, so now we have everything that we needed to prep or chop up in our stock pot here. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up everything else that needs to be added. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in my drained and rinsed black beans, 1 can of those. So my drained green beans that I'm gonna add as well. And again, any other veggies that you and your family enjoy, you can add to this. And then I'm also gonna add my seasonings. So usually this is just to taste. So I'm just gonna add a few shakes of garlic powder and also my chili powder. I tend to season a little bit less than I think that I'll want. And then at the end you can always add more. I'm also going to add some black pepper and salt. Alright, so we've got all of our veggies and all of our spices. The last thing we need to add is our meat. So I've got a ½ pound of ground turkey here. Now I am going to go ahead and grab this with my hands, and I'm just going to make sure to wash my hands immediately after. I am going to break it up a little bit as I add it as well. And of course, when I get this on the stove, I'm going to mix this all together really nicely. All right, so our very veggie turkey chili is on the stove, and that's going to need to simmer for a few hours or until everything gets soft and the meat is cooked. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to prepping our zucchini. So these are washed already, and I'm going to chop them into slices so that we can cook them in a sauté pan. If you prefer, you could also cut these into like longer strips or wedges. I just personally prefer smaller circles or slices, and they cook a little bit faster that way too, I think. So I always like to cut off the ends and then cut straight down the center so that I can have a flat surface to cut on. Now I've got 4 zucchini here. That may seem like a lot of zucchini. The recipe only calls for like 2 or 3. I love zucchini, so I always make a lot because I love it and I'll eat a lot of it. Zucchini are a really nice soft veggie, so if your younger kids are just learning to chop with a knife, or even your older kids are just learning to chop with a knife, this is a really great vegetable to start on. Things like carrots are really, really tricky even for me as an adult. So zucchini or maybe a soft fruit like a banana are all really good ways to get your kids involved in the kitchen as well. Alright, so now that my chili is on the stove simmering, and I've got all of my zucchini chopped up, I'm going to go ahead and wait, and I'm going to saute my zucchini right before my chili is done. That way I don't have to hold it hot or put it in the refrigerator and reheat it or anything like that. So I'm going to wait a little bit, and when my chili is ready, I'm going to go ahead and saute these. It only takes about 5 or 10 minutes. and at around the same time I'm going to make my pudding. Alright guys, we're back. The Very Veggie turkey chili is almost done. It's been on the stove for a few hours, so we're going to go ahead and prep the other components of the meal, and then everything should be ready. So I'm going to go ahead and do our pudding first so that it can set for a few minutes while I do the zucchini, so trying to prioritize tasks so that things can sit at the right time. So we'll go ahead and start with this. So I just have a normal packet of sugar-free instant vanilla pudding. I'm going to dump that in my bowl here. And slowly add about 2 cups of milk. And I've got my handy dandy whisk. Now instant pudding is great because it sits for about 5 minutes and it's ready. If you happen to have pudding that requires cooking, just consider that ahead of time because you'll need a lot of time for that to set. So you may need to prepare that earlier than you would do for instant pudding. Alright, so I beat that pretty well. It's well blended now. And since we're pretty close to that time, I'm going to go ahead and cut up my banana. Remember, peeling fruits like this is a great activity for your kids to get involved. Alright, and then the only other thing we need to do for our banana pudding parfaits is to crush up some graham crackers. We need about 3/4 of a cup. So I'm just going to grab 2 to start and crush it into this cup measuring cup. Alright, so we're just going to wait for our pudding to finish setting, and then we'll be able to assemble that with our fresh bananas and our crumbled up graham crackers. While I wait for that to set, I'm going to go ahead and put my zucchini on the stove, and then everything will be ready. Alright, so our pudding is setting, and our chili is pretty much done. So we're going to go ahead and saute our zucchini. So these are already cut from earlier. And my pan is already hot. I went ahead and put about 2 tablespoons of oil in there. So you want this on medium to medium-high heat probably. And I used a nice big pan because I have a lot of zucchini, and you want them to be touching the pan as much as possible as you're sauteing. Turn my heat up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add some pepper, some salt, and also some garlic powder to this. Alright, so we'll give this a good stir, and we'll let it saute for 5 to 10 minutes, basically whenever it gets soft enough to eat. Some people like their zucchini a little more cooked than others, so cook it for as long as you feel it needs to get soft enough to your taste. Alright, so our zucchini are nicely sauteed. They've got a little bit of browning on them, so they look really nice. Everything smells really good too. So I'm going to go ahead and put my shredded Parmesan on here. Basically just mix it enough to incorporate it in with all the zucchini and coat the zucchini. And then we will be ready to eat. Alright, so we are all set for dinner. We've got our Very Veggie turkey chili with our side of zucchini and our dessert of our banana pudding parfait. As you can see, the blue plate is our child-sized portion and the yellow is our adult-sized portion. And we hope you enjoyed this recipe.